The courtroom is quiet, but the quiet makes me feel uneasy. 5 women are sitting just a few feet apart, but the space between them feels like years of lies, betrayal, and heartbreak. And in the middle of it all is a man who is staring at a truth he never thought would come out in public. You don't really know this family if you think you do. Today, everything is different. And before we start, please tell me in the comments who you think is being honest and who is hiding things. The heavy thud of the courtroom doors closing makes the camera in your mind slowly move forward. It feels like the air is thick and hard to breathe. Kody Brown sits still, his jaw tight and his fingers locked together so tightly that his knuckles have turned white. Christine Brown, who is sitting across from him, doesn't even look at him. Her eyes are fixed straight ahead, cold and far away, as if she left a long time ago. Janelle Brown moves around in her seat, which is clearly uncomfortable, but she also has something else: determination. And then there's Robyn Brown, whose eyes are red and whose hands are shaking a little as she plays a part that no one is sure is real or carefully planned. And last but not least, Meri Brown, quiet, looking, waiting. This isn't just a fight between family members anymore. This is a war in court. The judge clears his throat, and the tension gets even worse. The case? Financial manipulation, emotional harm, and a shocking claim that could change everything the public thought they knew about this family. The lawyer stands up and starts slowly and carefully, as if he is enjoying every word. Your Honor, what we are about to show you is not just a breakdown of a family, it is a pattern of control. The word is still there. Take charge. Kody moves around in his seat. Christine finally turns her head, but only a little bit. For the first time, their eyes almost meet, but Kody looks away first. The voiceover gets softer here, drawing the viewer in. This didn't start in a court of law. This all began years ago, in quiet talks, ignored emotions, and choices that seemed small at the time. Back in time. A room in the house, lighting that is warm, smiles that aren't real. Kody is laughing too much. Robyn is sitting a little closer than the others. Christine is watching and noticing. Janelle is doing math and looking for patterns. Meri, already feeling like she doesn't belong in her own life. In the courtroom, the lawyer starts to show documents like financial records, property ownership splits, and statements that don't match what was made public. And then, all of a sudden, the story changes. This isn't just about feelings anymore. This is a plan. Christine's voice finally breaks the silence. It's calm, but sharp. I believed in you. 3 words. That's it. But the effect is strong. Kody breathes out and almost laughs, but it's not funny. You believed what you wanted to believe, he says back. The room gets tense. Robyn lowers her head and wipes a tear away quietly. But what about Janelle? She leans forward a little, as if she's been waiting for this moment. The judge steps in and reminds everyone where they are, but it's too late to fix things. Because now it's about you. The first session is like a slow burn. The documents are shown, but the reactions are what really matter. Christine was angry but kept it under control. Janelle's quiet math, Meri's expression that couldn't be read, and Robyn, who was always about to cry. Kody is trying to stay in charge, but little by little he is losing it. Then the defense starts to break down for real. A record of money, a move, a choice made without everyone agreeing. The lawyer stops, looks straight at the judge, and then back at Kody. Can you explain this? Kody thinks about it. Just for a moment. But that second is all it takes, and that's when session 1 really starts to get a hold of doubt, because now everyone is asking the same thing. What else hasn't been said? The energy changes again as session 2 starts to build up below the surface. It feels colder in the courtroom now, more focused, less emotional, but more risky. Because this is where secrets start to come out. Janelle is called to the stand. She walks slowly and with confidence, but her shoulders are tense. She is sitting, takes a breath, and when she talks, everything changes. I've been quiet for years, but not anymore. Kody's eyes are on her. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not in public. She starts talking about money decisions, like who had access to what and who didn't, and slowly a pattern starts to show up. Not clear, not loud, but there is no doubt. There were accounts. I didn't even know they were there. Be quiet. Complete silence. Robyn suddenly looks up. Kody's face gets tense. Christine closes her eyes for a moment as if something painful has just been confirmed. The tension is very high right now. Because this isn't about how you feel anymore. This is about the truth. Session 3 goes deeper, emotionally. It's Robyn's turn now. She stands up, already upset, and her voice shakes. I never wanted this, but Christine responds right away, though in a subtle way. A small shake of the head. Not believing. Robyn goes on to paint a picture of confusion, of trying to keep the family together, and of being misunderstood. But then the lawyer cuts in. Did you have access to those accounts or not? The question hits hard. Robyn stops moving. Only for a second, and at that moment, everything seems uncertain. Session 4 gets crazy. Meri finally says something, and no one is ready for it. I knew. 2 words. Whispers fill the courtroom. Kody looks shocked. Robyn's face loses its color. Christine turns all the way around and looks at Meri like she's never seen her before. Janelle leans back a little to take it all in. Meri goes on, her voice calm and almost detached. I knew more than I ever said. And now the whole story changes. Because the person who was quietest in the room might have had the biggest piece of the truth. Session 5 starts with the most intense moment. One last time, the lawyer steps forward. Why didn't you say anything before? Meri looks straight ahead. Not at Kody, not at Robyn, not at all. And what she said doesn't come right away. The quiet goes on and on. A lot. Not comfortable. Can't be helped. And just before she talks, the scene ends. Leaving one question unanswered, what was she protecting and who was she protecting it from? The courtroom feels different now, quieter but heavier, like the walls themselves are holding their breath as Janelle Brown rises from her seat and walks toward the stand, each step measured, controlled, but carrying years of unspoken weight. She doesn't look at Kody Brown as she passes him, and that alone says more than words ever could. Because once upon a time, she would have searched his face for reassurance, for alignment, for something that felt like partnership. But today, there is nothing. Just distance, just resolve, and as she sits, adjusts the microphone slightly and exhales. The entire room seems to lean in closer, waiting, watching, knowing that whatever comes next could shift everything. The lawyer approaches slowly, not rushing, giving the moment space to breathe, then asks in a calm but deliberate tone, Janelle, can you explain to the court your role in the family's finances over the years? And for a brief second, Janelle's eyes flicker, not with fear, but with memory, because this isn't just about numbers, this is about trust, about years of contributing, sacrificing, building something she believed was shared, something she believed was equal, and when she finally speaks, her voice is steady but carries a quiet intensity that instantly commands attention. I handled a lot of the budgeting, the planning, making sure things worked month to month. She pauses, glancing briefly toward the judge before continuing, but I didn't have full control. Not really, and that word control hangs in the air again, echoing the earlier statement, tying everything together in a way that feels intentional, almost ominous, as the lawyer nods slightly and steps closer. What do you mean by not full control? And Janelle shifts in her seat, fingers interlocking for just a moment before she lets them go, grounding herself. I mean, decisions were made, sometimes without me knowing until after, and there it is, the first crack widening just enough for everyone to see inside, as Kody's posture stiffens noticeably, his jaw tightening as if he's already preparing to push back. But the lawyer doesn't give him the chance yet, instead continuing to. guide Janelle forward. Can you give an example? And now the tension sharpens because examples mean specifics and specifics mean accountability, and Janelle nods slowly as if she's already chosen which memory to bring into the light. There were property decisions, reallocations of money, accounts that shifted, she says carefully, choosing. Each word like it matters. Because it does, and I wasn't always informed beforehand, a murmur ripples faintly through the courtroom. Subtle but unmistakable as the weight of that statement settles in, and Kody finally leans forward slightly, unable to stay silent any longer, his voice cutting in. Controlled but edged with frustration, that's not entirely accurate, but the judge raises a hand immediately, firm, stopping him before he can continue, reminding him that his time will come, and Janelle doesn't even look at him, not this time, because this moment is hers. This voice is hers. And she's not giving it up, and just when it feels like she's only scratching the surface, the truth begins to take a sharper, more dangerous shape. The lawyer moves closer again and lowers his voice just enough to get everyone's attention. Janelle, were there ever financial accounts that you found out about after they had already been set up? And this is it. The moment that shifts everything, because Janelle doesn't answer right away, her eyes lowering for a brief second as if she's weighing the impact, as if she knows that once this is said, there's no pulling it back, no softening it, no protecting anyone anymore. And when she finally looks up, her expression has changed. It's no longer cautious, it's certain. Yes, she says simply. And the word lands with quiet force. There were accounts I didn't know existed until much later, and now the silence that follows is absolute suffocating, because this isn't speculation. Anymore, this is revelation, and across the room, Robyn's head lifts suddenly, her expression tightening as if she's been caught off guard, while Christine's eyes close briefly, a flicker of pain crossing her face like something she feared has just been confirmed. And Meri remains still. Watching, always watching, her expression unreadable, but her attention razor sharp. The lawyer doesn't rush. He lets the silence stretch, lets it do its work, before asking the question everyone is now thinking, do you know who had access to those accounts? And Janelle inhales slowly, her shoulders rising just slightly before she steadies herself again. I know who was involved in the decisions, she replies. Careful again, but not retreating, not this time, and though she doesn't say the name directly, the implication is clear enough that all eyes instinctively shift toward Kody and Robyn, the unspoken tension between them now impossible to ignore, as Kody shakes his head almost immediately, leaning back in his chair as if rejecting the narrative entirely, while Robyn's hands clasp tighter in her lap, her breathing visibly uneven, because. Now the story isn't just being told, it's being exposed piece by piece in front of everyone. The lawyer steps back and then circles around a little, changing his angle and tone just enough to show that he is pushing harder. Janelle, during these years, did you feel like you had an equal say in financial decisions? This question hits differently because it's not just about facts. It's about feeling, perception, and the emotional truth behind the numbers. Janelle's lips press together for a moment before she answers, no, she says, more firmly this time, I didn't. There's no hesitation now, no softening, just clarity, and it hits harder than anything else she's said so far. Equality was the foundation they all believed in, or at least the one they thought they were building, and now that foundation is being questioned in the most public way possible. Kody exhales sharply, running a hand through his hair in frustration, his composure slipping just slightly as he mutters under his breath, but it's enough to draw attention, enough to show that the control he's been trying to maintain is starting to crack, and the lawyer notices it. Of course he does, turning his focus briefly toward him before returning to Janelle. Did you ever confront Kody about this? Yes, she says more than once, and now the courtroom feels like it's leaning even closer. Confrontations mean conflict, and conflict means history, and history means there's more, so much more beneath the surface. And what was his response? The lawyer presses, and Janelle's face tightens a little, not with anger, but with something deeper, something more complicated. It depended, she says slowly. Sometimes it was reassurance, sometimes it was dismissal. That word dismissal cuts through the room like a knife, because it changes everything. It suggests a pattern, a dynamic that goes beyond isolated incidents. Christine's gaze shifts now, locking briefly onto Kody with a look that feels both validating and painful, like she's hearing her own experiences echoed in Janelle's words. And just when it seems like the emotional weight can't get any heavier, the truth digs even deeper. The lawyer nods, taking it all in, and then takes one last step forward. His voice is quieter and more deliberate now. Janelle, why speak up now? And this question lingers, because it's not just about the past, it's about this moment, this choice, this turning point, and Janelle doesn't answer immediately. Her eyes scanning the room briefly, Christine, Meri, even Robyn, before settling somewhere ahead, somewhere steady, because staying. Quiet didn't fix anything, she says finally, her voice softer but stronger than ever. It just made it easier for things to continue, and there it is, the heart of it, the reason, the shift from silence to truth, and as those words settle, the courtroom feels different again, not just tense, but changed, like something irreversible has just taken place. Kody leans back, shaking his head again, but there's less certainty in it now, less control, as if he's realizing that this isn't a narrative he can redirect anymore. Not easily, not in this setting, and Robyn looks down, her expression conflicted, caught somewhere between emotion and calculation, while Meri remains still, absorbing everything, storing it, waiting. The judge finally speaks, signaling a brief pause in the questioning, but the energy doesn't dissipate. It lingers, heavy and unresolved, because what's been revealed isn't complete. It's just the beginning, just the first layer pulled back, and as Janelle steps down from the stand, walking back to her seat with the same measured control she had before, there's a noticeable shift in the room, a sense that the story everyone thought they knew is unraveling in real time, thread by thread, truth by truth, and just as the courtroom begins to process what's been said, one question remains louder than all the others. If this is what Janelle knew, what else is still hidden? The courtroom feels colder now, like something invisible has shifted beneath the surface. As Janelle Brown walks toward the witness stand, she stands straighter than she did before, not like in the past when compromise seemed easier than confrontation. She doesn't look at Kody Brown as she passes him, which shows how far things have fallen between them. Their relationship used to be based on practicality and mutual understanding, but now it feels like two completely separate worlds colliding in one room. She sits down, makes a small adjustment, and brushes her fingers against the edge of the stand before settling still, grounding herself. When the lawyer approaches, his tone is calm but precise, and the tension rises even more. Janelle, for the record, can you describe your involvement in the family's financial decisions over the years? Her eyes flicker for a moment, not with doubt, but with memory. This question isn't easy. It has years of balancing budgets, making sacrifices, and trusting that the system they built was fair behind it. I handled a lot of the budgeting, she says, her voice steady and deliberate. Monthly expenses, planning, making sure things worked. She pauses for a moment to breathe, then adds, but I wasn't the one making all the decisions. That distinction is more important than it sounds, because it separates responsibility from authority, effort from control. The lawyer leans in a little, sensing the shift. Who was making those decisions? Were those decisions always talked about with you first? He asks. The room seems to tighten around the answer. Janelle's eyes drop for a moment before she looks up again. Kody was involved heavily, she says carefully, not accusingly, but not shielding either. Kody's shoulders stiffen across the room, and his expression tightens as if he's already getting ready to push back, but the lawyer doesn't give him space yet. Now the pause is longer and more noticeable, because this is where truth starts to separate from image. No, Janelle says finally, the word quiet but firm, not always. A subtle ripple goes through the courtroom, not loud or dramatic, but enough to show that something important has just been acknowledged. And just when the audience thinks they understand where this is going, the ground starts to shift beneath them. The lawyer steps closer slowly and lowers his voice a little, drawing attention inward. Can you give me an example of a time when a decision was made without your knowledge? When Janelle exhales softly, it sounds like she is carefully choosing which moment to bring up. There are too many, but she picks one. There were financial transfers, she says, money being moved into accounts I wasn't aware of at the time. This time, the reaction is sharper and more immediate because now the implication is clear. This isn't just miscommunication. This is omission. Kody shifts in his seat, his jaw tightening as he leans forward slightly, unable to stay still. Robyn Brown lowers her gaze, her hands clasping tighter together in her lap, her expression unreadable but tense. The lawyer doesn't hesitate now. Pressing further, when you say you weren't aware, do you mean these accounts were created without your knowledge? Yes, Janelle says, nodding once, small but sure. The simplicity of her answer makes it even more powerful. I didn't know they existed until much later. The silence that follows is heavier than anything that came before it. It's no longer vague, it's specific and undeniable. Christine Brown shifts slightly across the room, pressing her lips together as if holding back something she's felt for a long time, while Meri Brown stays still, her eyes fixed on Janelle, taking in every word and detail. Because sometimes the quietest revelations are the ones that change everything. The lawyer moves around a bit, changing his angle and making his tone sharper. Do you know who had access to those accounts? Janelle's fingers interlock for a moment before she lets go, steadying herself. I know who was involved in managing them, she says, careful but direct. She doesn't say the names outright, but the implication is clear. Kody exhales sharply and shakes his head under his breath as if rejecting the whole idea. Robyn's posture stiffens and her eyes lift just a little, caught between reaction and restraint. The lawyer watches this and then turns back to Janelle. Did you ever question these decisions when you found out? Yes, she says, I did, and now Janelle's voice has a different energy, something stronger and more determined. When he asks, and what was the response? Sometimes I was told it was for the good of the family, she says, that it would all balance out, her expression tightening just a little. And sometimes I was made to feel like I was overreacting. That word, overreacting, cuts through the room because it changes everything again. It suggests a pattern not just of control, but of dismissal. Christine's gaze sharpens, and her body leans forward just a little, as if she is hearing her own experiences echoed in Janelle's words. Kody's composure slips just a little more, and he runs his hand through his hair as frustration builds. And right here, the tone changes from explanation to confrontation. The lawyer nods and then asks the question that seems to have to be asked. Did you feel like you had equal authority over family finances? This time, there is no pause or hesitation. She says no, clearly and firmly. The word hits harder than anything else she has said because it completely destroys the illusion of equality that they had built up and maintained. Now it is being openly challenged in a courtroom in front of everyone. Kody leans forward right away, unable to stay silent, and says that's not true, his voice controlled but tense. The judge intervenes again, firmly reminding him to wait his turn, and Janelle doesn't even look at him because she is past that, past needing validation, past needing agreement. The lawyer takes one more step, his voice quieter and more deliberate. Why speak about this now? This question stays with me longer than the others because it's about choice, timing, and why this moment matters. Janelle's eyes move briefly across the room, Christine, Meri, even Robyn, before settling forward again. Because staying quiet didn't change anything, she says, her voice softer but stronger. It just allowed it to continue. There is a sense of finality in that statement, as if this isn't just testimony, but closure, or at least the start of it. And just when it seems like the truth has finally settled into place, one last detail shakes everything again. The lawyer looks down at his notes and then back up. Janelle, Is there anything else you haven't told the court that they need to know? And for the first time, there's a longer pause, a deeper silence, as if the room itself is waiting, and Janelle inhales slowly, her expression shifting slightly. Not uncertain, but heavier. Like she's about to cross a line she can't uncross, and when she finally speaks, her voice is steady but carries something deeper beneath it. There were times, she begins, when I felt decisions weren't just being made without me, but were being hidden, and the word hidden lands like a shockwave. Because it changes everything again, it moves from exclusion to secrecy, from imbalance to something far more serious, and the reactions are immediate. Kody's head snapping slightly toward her, Robyn's breath catching, Christine's eyes widening just enough to show that even she didn't expect that level of honesty. And Meri, still watching, still silent, but now with a focus that feels sharper than ever. The judge calls for a brief pause, but the energy doesn't break. It lingers thick and unresolved, because what's been revealed isn't the end. It's just the beginning. And as Janelle steps down from the stand, returning to her seat with that same controlled composure, there's a new understanding in the room, a new tension that wasn't there before, because now the story isn't just about disagreement, it's about what was known, what was hidden, and what might still be waiting beneath the surface. And as the courtroom prepares for what comes next, one question refuses to fade. If Janelle has revealed this much, what happens when the others start telling their side? The air in the courtroom feels heavier now, almost suffocating, as if every word spoken so far has settled into the walls and refuses to leave. And as Robyn Brown slowly rises from her seat, there's a visible tremor in her hands, a fragility in her posture that immediately draws attention. Because unlike Janelle Brown's composed firmness, Robyn carries something more emotional, more uncertain, and as she walks toward the stand, her eyes briefly flicker toward Kody Brown, searching for something, support, reassurance, alignment, but his expression is tight, guarded, offering nothing she can hold on to, and that moment, small as it is, speaks volumes. She sits, adjusting herself carefully, her fingers gripping the edge of the stand just a little too tightly, and when the lawyer approaches, his tone shifts noticeably. Softer, almost sympathetic, but there's an edge beneath it, precision that suggests he knows exactly where this is going. Robyn, can you describe your understanding of the family's financial structure? Were you aware of all financial accounts within the family? The lawyer asks, nodding slowly to let her words sink in. The lawyer nods slowly, letting her words sink in before asking, did you know about all the family's bank accounts? The change is immediate, subtle, but undeniable. Robyn's fingers tighten and her shoulders stiffen slightly. I don't know about all, she says, her voice quieter and less sure. There were things Kody handled, and that answer hangs in the air, incomplete and cautious. The lawyer doesn't let it pass, stepping closer and speaking more pointedly. So you're saying there were accounts you didn't have access to? Robyn quickly nods, almost too quickly, and says, yes, there were things I wasn't involved in. For a moment, it seems like she's agreeing with what Janelle said before, putting herself outside of the center of control. But the lawyer's face doesn't change, because this is where the tension builds and the story starts to test itself. Because sometimes the truth isn't just about what is said, it's also about what doesn't quite fit. He looks at his notes for a moment, then back at her. Robyn, were there accounts that you could see that other people couldn't? Can you tell me which accounts those were? The question hits Robyn differently, more sharply, and directly. She freezes for a second, her eyes flickering as if looking for the right answer. The safe answer. I had access to some things, she finally admits, her voice barely above a whisper. Across the room, Janelle's expression tightens slightly, and Christine leans forward just a little, her attention locked in. Because this is the moment when alignment starts to break down and the story starts to show its flaws. The lawyer steps closer, not aggressively, but without stopping. Can you tell me which accounts those were? And Robyn hesitates again, this time for a longer time, her breathing clearly uneven. They were... accounts for household expenses, for things we needed, she says, but there is a vagueness in her words that doesn't sit right, that doesn't match the precision of the earlier testimony, and the lawyer notices, of course he does. Pressing just a little further, were these the same accounts Janelle referenced earlier? And now the tension rises because this is the moment when the stories either come together or fall apart. Robyn's eyes widen a little and her lips part as if to speak, but no sound comes out right away. That silence, that hesitation, speaks louder than anything else she could say. And in that brief pause, everything starts to feel uncertain again. Kody shifts in his seat and his frustration becomes more obvious. He taps his fingers against his leg as if trying to let go of the tension building inside him, but he stays quiet for now. Robyn finally exhales and says, I don't know if they were the same, her voice strained. I didn't keep track like that, and the answer feels vague and incomplete. The room reacts in small ways. Christine's head tilts slightly in disbelief. Janelle's gaze lowers but sharpens. Meri still watches, always watching, her expression unreadable but intensely focused. The lawyer nods slowly, as if acknowledging the answer while clearly not being satisfied with it. Robyn, earlier you said you believed everything was being done for the family. Do you still believe that now? This question changes the tone again, bringing it back to an emotional level but with a hint of doubt. Robyn's eyes fill with tears almost right away, and her voice breaks as she says, I wanted to believe that, and for a moment it feels real, raw, like a crack in the facade. But then the lawyer asks another question, this time more pointedly, but do you believe it now? Robyn stutters, her eyes drop and her hands tighten again. I don't know, she admits, and that uncertainty weighs heavily on her because it goes against everything she tried to establish at the beginning. It makes her doubt not just the situation, but also her own understanding of it. When certainty breaks, the truth has nowhere left to hide. The lawyer steps back to give the moment some room, then turns slightly and asks, Robyn, were you ever there when the other wives made financial decisions without telling you? Not like that? The lawyer asks, leaning in just enough to catch Robyn's hesitation. She shakes her head slightly and says, no, not like that, but there is a pause in her voice that doesn't go unnoticed. He repeats, and Robyn swallows hard, her composure slipping a little more. I mean, there were conversations, but I didn't think they were wrong, she says, her voice shaking. Now the courtroom feels like it's holding its breath again. This isn't denial, it's justification, and justification means she knows what's going on, even if she's trying to distance herself from it. Kody's expression changes across the room, a flicker of something, anger, frustration, maybe even concern, crossing his face as he watches this unfold. Christine's eyes narrow slightly, and her skepticism is now clear. Janelle stays still, but there's a quiet intensity in her posture that suggests she's connecting every piece and every word, building a clearer picture with each passing second. And just when it seems like Robyn has said enough, the final question changes everything. The lawyer steps forward one last time and says in a low, deliberate voice, Robyn, did you ever benefit from financial decisions that the others were unaware of? And the question lands like a shockwave, because it's no longer about awareness or involvement, it's about gain, about outcome, about who ultimately benefited from the system that's now being questioned, and Robyn's reaction is immediate, her eyes widening, her breath catching as she shakes her. Head, no, I didn't mean to, she says, and that last part slips out almost involuntarily, a quiet addition that changes everything. Because it suggests something deeper, something unspoken. And the room reacts instantly, Christine leaning forward, eyes locked, Janelle's gaze lifting. Sharply, Meri's expression tightening for the first time, and Kody going completely still. The lawyer doesn't say anything else. He doesn't need to. Because that one phrase, "I didn't mean to," echoes louder than any argument, any document, any accusation, and as Robyn's composure finally breaks, tears falling freely now as she lowers her head, the courtroom feels like it's reached a breaking point, not in volume, but in understanding. Because the story is no longer about what happened, it's about how it happened, and who knew what along the way, and as the weight of Robyn's words settles over the room, one question rises above all the others. If she didn't mean to benefit, then who made sure she did? The silence that follows Robyn Brown's testimony doesn't feel like relief, it feels like pressure building. Like the entire courtroom is bracing for something heavier, something deeper, and as the judge calls the next witness, every eye shifts slowly toward Meri Brown, who has remained almost completely still up until this point, her composure unreadable. Her presence quiet but impossible to ignore, and when she finally rises, there's something different about her. Not fragile like Robyn, not openly resolute like Janelle Brown, not visibly wounded like Kody Brown, but something else entirely, controlled, measured, and almost detached. Like someone who has already processed the storm long before it reached the surface, she walks to the stand without hesitation, without looking at Kody Brown, and that absence of acknowledgement feels louder than any confrontation. Because it suggests something final, something already decided, and as she sits, adjusts slightly, and folds her hands calmly in front of her, the entire room leans in, sensing that whatever she is about to say will not be simple, will not be easy, and when the lawyer approaches, his tone shifts again. More cautious now, more aware of the weight this witness carries. "Meri, can you describe your awareness of the family's financial decisions over the years?" "More than people think," she says, her voice calm, but with an undercurrent that makes the room tense up right away. Kody's posture stiffens and his expression sharpens as if he knows where this is going. Robyn's hands tighten in her lap and her breathing slows. Kody leans forward slightly, her attention locked because this is new territory. And just when it seems like Meri might hold back, she does the exact opposite. The lawyer slowly nods, understanding the change. "What do you mean by that?" "Did you know about the accounts Janelle mentioned?" he asks, and Meri tilts her head slightly as if she's thinking about how much to say. But there's no hesitation in her voice when she continues, "I knew there were decisions being made that weren't being shared equally," she says, and the clarity of that statement cuts through the room like a blade, because it confirms what has only been implied so far. Kody exhales sharply, his jaw tightening as he leans back in his chair, clearly unsettled now, while Robyn's gaze drops, unable or unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. "Yes," Meri says, and the simplicity of that answer sends a ripple through the courtroom. This is no longer speculation, it's confirmation from a different point of view, a different position within the same dynamic. Kody's eyes widen slightly, her expression changing from suspicion to something closer to realization, while Janelle stays still but alert, taking in every word. Because when two stories start to line up, the truth starts to take shape. The lawyer pushes on. "How long did you know about these accounts?" "Longer than I should have been without saying anything," she admits. And that admission carries weight, not just of knowledge, but of silence, of choice, of something left unspoken for too long, and the room reacts subtly, the tension shifting from revelation to accountability. Because now, the question isn't just what happened, it's why it wasn't stopped. The lawyer senses this and leans into it. "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" "Because at the time, I didn't think it would change anything," she says, and her voice softens a little, but doesn't lose its control. There's something very honest about that statement, something that goes beyond the specifics of the case. It shows a kind of resignation, a kind of quiet acceptance that had settled in long before this moment. And just when it feels like Meri is revealing the past, she starts to reveal something even deeper. The lawyer moves closer again and lowers his voice. "Did you ever have a direct role in these decisions?" Meri's face tightens just a little, not in a defensive way, but in a precise way. Not in the way you're asking, she says. I wasn't the one making the decisions, but I was there for some of the conversations. That distinction is important because it puts her close enough to know, but not necessarily in control. And the implications of that are complicated, layered, and hard to untangle. Across the room, Kody's gaze locks onto her now, intense, almost searching, as if trying to gauge how much she's going to reveal and how far she's willing to go. The lawyer doesn't let the moment slip. What kind of conversations? Conversations about reallocating money, about prioritizing certain needs over others, she says, and even though her tone stays calm, there's an undercurrent of something else now, something closer to regret, to recognition. Christine's posture changes again, and her attention sharpens even more. This isn't just about hidden accounts anymore, it's about intent, about reasoning, about the decisions behind the decisions. Because once the motivations start to surface, the story becomes impossible to ignore. The lawyer nods and then asks Meri, "Did you ever think those decisions were unfair?" This changes everything. Then why stay silent? And for the first time, Meri's composure cracks, not dramatically, not visibly to everyone, but enough. Just enough. Her eyes narrowing slightly, her lips pressing together before she answers, "Yes," she says. Quietly but firmly, "I did." And that word lands with a different kind of weight. Because it's not just about knowledge anymore, it's about judgment, about recognizing something was wrong and still remaining silent. And the room absorbs it, every person reacting in their own way, Janelle's gaze lowering in a kind of confirmation, Christine's expression tightening with a mix of validation and frustration, Robyn's shoulders tensing as if the pressure has shifted toward her again, and Kody going very still. His expression unreadable, but his tension unmistakable. The lawyer steps back slightly, then forward again, his voice quieter now, more deliberate. Then why stay? Silent? And this question lingers longer than any before it, because it cuts to the core of Meri's role in all of this, her position, her choices, and the room feels like it's holding its breath as she considers it, her gaze drifting for just a moment before returning forward, steady, unwavering, because I. Thought speaking up would cost me everything, she says. And there it is, the emotional truth beneath the logic, beneath the silence, beneath the years of inaction, and it changes everything again. Because now her silence isn't just complicity, it's fear, it's survival, it's something deeply personal. That reframes her entire role in the story, and just when it feels like the truth has finally settled, one final reveal sends shock through the room. The lawyer takes one last step forward and says, "Meri, did Kody know that you knew about these decisions?" His voice is steady, but it carries the weight of what he's about to ask. And the question lands like a final test, a point of no return, and Meri doesn't hesitate this time, not even for a second. "Yes," she says. And the impact is immediate, Kody's head turning sharply toward her, Robyn's breath catching, Christine's eyes widening, Janelle's posture stiffening. Because this changes the entire dynamic, it suggests awareness on all sides, layers of knowledge and silence intertwined in ways no one fully expected, and the courtroom feels like it's reached a new level of tension, one that goes beyond accusations and into something far more complex, the lawyer. Doesn't need to ask anything else, not yet, because that one answer has opened too many doors, raised too many questions, and as Meri sits there, composed once again, her hands folded, her expression calm but heavy with everything she's just revealed, the room feels different, charged, unsettled. On the edge of something bigger, and as the weight of Meri's truth settles over everyone, one question refuses to stay buried. If Kody knew that Meri knew, then how deep does this go, and who else has been part of the silence all along? The courtroom doesn't return to normal after Meri Brown's testimony. It shifts into something sharper, more volatile, like every word she spoke is still echoing in the air, pressing against everyone in the room, and as the judge calls for the next phase, all eyes instinctively turn toward Kody. Brown. because now there's nowhere left for the focus to go, nowhere left to redirect the tension, and for the first time since the proceedings began, he looks less like someone in control and more like someone being forced into a corner he never expected to face, his posture stiff, his expression tight, his breathing just slightly uneven as he rises slowly from his seat and makes his way toward the stand. He doesn't look at anyone at first, not at Kody Brown, not at Janelle Brown, not even at Robyn. But as he passes them, there's a tension that follows him, like invisible threads, connecting every unresolved moment, every accusation, every silence that led to this point. And when he finally sits, adjusting his jacket, placing his hands deliberately on the stand as if grounding himself, the entire courtroom seems to lean forward in unison, waiting, because this is it, the moment where everything either comes together or completely falls apart. The lawyer approaches slowly, no rush now, no need for theatrics. Because the weight of the situation speaks for itself, Kody, he begins, his tone calm but firm. You've heard the testimonies given so far. Do you believe they accurately reflect your role in the family's financial decisions? And the question hangs there, simple on the surface, but loaded with implication. Kody exhales slowly before answering. His voice is calm, but has a noticeable edge. No, he says, I don't. And that one word lands like a spark, igniting a new layer of tension in the room. The story is no longer aligned, it's fractured, conflicting, and unstable. Just when it seems like Kody is about to take back control, the pressure rises. The lawyer nods slightly, as if he expected that answer, and then moves closer. Can you explain your role then? Was it always clear to the other family members what those decisions were? He asks, and Kody straightens up a little, his tone becoming more forceful and defensive. I was in charge of making sure the family was stable, he says, of making decisions that would benefit everyone in the long term. There is conviction in his voice, but also something else, something rigid, something that feels more like justification than explanation. Christine's expression tightens across the room, her lips pressing together as if holding back a reaction. Janelle watches closely, her gaze steady and analytical, and Robyn sits still, her hands clasped tightly and her eyes fixed on Kody as if waiting for something specific. The lawyer doesn't immediately challenge him, instead letting the words settle before asking, were those decisions always communicated to the other members of the family? Here it is, the point of tension, the line where intention meets action. Kody pauses for a moment before saying, not always. The admission is subtle, almost understated, but its effect is immediate because it fits with what has already been said, and that alignment creates a crack in his defense, a small opening that the lawyer quickly widens. Because once one piece falls into place, the rest start to follow. Why not? The lawyer asks, still, even but more pointed now, and Kody exhales again, his frustration becoming more clear. Because not every decision needed to be discussed in detail, he says. Sometimes things had to be handled quickly, efficiently. And there it is, the reasoning, the justification, the framework he's been operating within. But as soon as the words leave his mouth, the reaction in the room shifts. What he presents as efficiency sounds to others like exclusion, like control. Christine finally reacts, shaking her head slightly, which is barely noticeable but full of meaning. Janelle's gaze sharpens and her posture stiffens slightly as if preparing to challenge the logic internally. The lawyer steps closer, pressing into that gap. So you made unilateral decisions regarding family finances? Why did you do that? He asks, and Kody's face tightens right away. I made decisions I thought were necessary, he says, his voice stronger and more defensive now. The difference is clear. He's not denying the action, he's reframing it, but the effect is the same, and the courtroom feels it. And right here, the tone changes from defense to exposure. The lawyer nods slowly, then turns and says, let's talk about the accounts we talked about before. Some family members didn't know about them. Can you explain what they were for? Why were they not disclosed to everyone? This question hits hard because it brings the abstract into the concrete and the general into the specific. Kody's posture shifts again, and his hands tighten slightly on the stand. Those accounts were part of managing resources, he says, allocating funds where they were needed. Again, the explanation sounds structured and logical, but it doesn't fully address the core issue, secrecy, and the lawyer knows it. Now the pause is longer and more noticeable. It's not just about making a decision anymore, it's about trust and transparency. Kody's answer comes slower this time, because not everyone needed to be involved in every detail. The room reacts right away, not loudly, but as a group, with a change in energy that can't be ignored. That statement confirms what has been building all along. It validates the feelings of exclusion, imbalance, and something not being shared equally. And just when it seems like the truth is finally being acknowledged, a deeper question changes everything again. The lawyer steps back a little, then forward again. His voice is sharper now. Did Robyn have access to these accounts? The question cuts straight through the room, changing the mood right away. Kody's head turns slightly and his eyes narrow just a little. Robyn was involved in certain aspects, he says carefully. Across the room, Robyn's posture stiffens and her gaze drops again. Christine leans forward slightly, her attention locked, and Janelle's expression tightens just enough to show that this is the moment she's been waiting for. The lawyer doesn't hesitate. Were those aspects shared equally with the others? Not always, he admits again, and the repetition of that phrase, not always, starts to feel like a pattern, like a quiet confirmation of everything that's been said so far. The room takes it all in, and everyone processes it in their own way. Patterns are impossible to ignore once they are revealed. The lawyer takes one last step forward, his voice steady but carrying the weight of everything that's come before. Kody, did you knowingly make financial decisions that benefited one member of the family more than the others? And the question lands like a final blow, because it strips away all the layers, all the justifications, all the complexity, and reduces everything to a single point, fairness, and Kody freezes. Just for a moment, his eyes flickering, his expression tightening as if he's calculating the answer. Impact, the consequences, and when he finally speaks, his voice is lower, less certain. That wasn't my intention, he says, and those words echo through the room. Because they mirror something Robyn said earlier, creating a connection that feels both revealing and unsettling, and the reactions are immediate. Christine's eyes narrowing, Janelle's posture stiffening, Meri's gaze sharpening, Robyn's breath catching, and suddenly the narrative feels clearer and more complicated at the same time. The lawyer doesn't press further. Not yet. Because the damage is already done. The admission, not. Direct, but implied, has shifted the entire dynamic, and as Kody sits there, his composure no longer as solid as it once was, the courtroom feels like it's on the edge of something even bigger. Something that hasn't fully surfaced yet, and as the weight of Kody's words settles over everyone. 1. Question rises above all the others. If this wasn't his intention, then was it ever really out of his control, or was it exactly the system he built from the beginning?